Hello, how are you? Good evening. How are you doing? I hope you're doing so fine. Let's start today's session. Today we're going to practice some discussion skills. For that, we're going to talk about music and we're going to watch also, we're going to practice some listening. We're going to watch a video of someone who's going to speak to us about music and how it influences to our lives. And we're going to have then a discussion between all of the people that will be today attending to our club. And just feel free today of practice your speaking. And at the end of the session, as usual, I'm going to take notes of all of the errors that you could commit. So you have a feedback at the end regarding the that. Okay, so give me just some moments. This is charging. All right, so let's start working. Let's start by listening. We're going to listen now a TED video. Give me a moment. I'm going to set the control so you can listen that. All right. Oops. Okay, it is. Today is a little bit slower, the internet. Okay. Well, the video, by the way, it's on the platform. You have the link of the platform if you were not added on our group in WhatsApp. Just on the description, you will find out there the link for being added to our platform in Google Classroom, so you can access there to our materials that are available there for you. Okay, and also to the recordings on the of the previous sessions. So if you want to check or if you want to recheck something that we mentioned or we did previously, so that. All right, so we're going to start. A good, very nice technique whenever you are practicing listening is that you can listen something that would be longer than 7 minutes. That's very important for intermediate levels. So your brain has the difficulty of trying to understand, but not only to understand, also to remember what you understood previously. And that's another very important skill that you need whenever you are doing listening in intermediate levels, what we are going to practice now, and in most of our sessions, we do that. So you can do this at home. For example, if you're studying for, or you're doing your own studying regarding the language, you can do this practice with uh, movies, with, I don't know, series, even with music. So the idea is to listen and to read at the same time. Today we're going to read also, so you will be able to read on the screen of Zoom and to listen. So the idea is to listen and to read. Then please, meanwhile you are reading, especially try to take notes of all of the new words or new grammar expressions that you could find out there. So take notes there. And at the end of that, we are going to have some questions and some moments for you can have your questions to the class. All right. So you can be answered that. Okay. So let's start. If you have any question before to start, let's start listening and watching and reading the TED video we're going to use today, which is about how music influences our lives in several aspects. It's very interesting. Do you have any question or comment before we start? Okay, let's start working. Let's start listening. Let me check the give me a moment, the volume, so you can listen very well. All right, everything is correct. Let's start. So remember, listen and read the subtitles and start taking notes of new words, new phrases, new grammar even, okay? And also take notes about the ideas that they are going to mention, especially, of course, they are going to speak about music, but also take into account which aspects about music they are going to speak about. All right, so let's start. Give me a second. I'm going to. All right, here we go.
So this morning, we all woke up and we had to make a series of decisions. Let's say the first thing we do is we go into our closet and have to pick out what shirt we want to wear. Next, we go into the bathroom and choose from a variety of different fragrances. And once we've gotten ourselves all ready for the day, let's say we sit down at the breakfast table and start swiping left or swiping right on a potential date. After all that, we're ready to go to work. We get in our car and we have to figure out what to listen to on the radio. And while we're flipping through the stations, it might sound a bit like this. Okay, so all these choices, what to wear, what to smell like, who to date, what to listen to, these are what I would call aesthetic judgments or aesthetic decisions. And basically what that means is just deciding what we like or what we find appealing versus what we dislike or find unappealing. And over the course of our lifetimes, we've built up our own unique aesthetic preferences or tastes to the point that making these types of decisions almost comes like second nature. It's really easy for us to do. Like in the case of the car radio, it seemed like we were able to flip through the stations within a few seconds. So in my research, I'm interested in figuring out exactly how much time it takes before we can tell whether or not we're gonna like a piece of music, and really not just how quickly can we decide, but do those snap judgments, those quick decisions actually line up with what we would decide given more time? So if I had just stayed on that first station a little bit longer, would I have eventually stuck with it, or did I make the right decision to switch then? So in my work, I've kind of come to the conclusion that the snap judgments actually are quite accurate. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to lead you through some of the experiments that have helped me come to that conclusion. So let's start with the science. The first experiment I did, we had participants come into the lab and they listened to 60 pieces of music. These were electronic, jazz, and classical excerpts. And the whole point was to try and see how quickly can people make aesthetic judgments of music. So we varied the amount of time people heard each clip, ranging from 250 milliseconds to 2,000 seconds. So here's an example of what 250 milliseconds worth of music might sound like. All right, it's very short, very, very short. Okay, so they would hear that, and then they're asked, how much do you like this piece of music? Rate it on a 1 to 9 point scale. 1, you don't like it. 9, you like it a lot. Okay, so let's say we gave that a 2. Then they would hear the same piece for 500 milliseconds. All right, we're at 500 milliseconds now. All right, then we rate that again. Then they heard it for 750 milliseconds. Rate it again. 1,000 milliseconds. Rate that. And 2,000 milliseconds. And rate that again. Okay, so this is a little bit of an artificial scenario. They weren't hearing the same exact piece over and over and over again. They heard all 60 of these pieces in a mixed up order. So the point of this is to see at what point to their decisions on these time durations line up with what they would decide if they listened to the entire piece of music. Well, we don't have enough time to have everybody listen to full, 4-minute pieces of music, so we used 10-second clips as our long clip, and that would sound like this. Okay, so they heard 10 seconds, and then we asked them again, how much do you like this piece? 1 to 9 point scale, and let's say we gave that a 5. So then what we did to score the data is we compared all of the earlier trials to the last trial to see when they matched up. So in this case, the ratings on the 750, 1,000, and 2,000 millisecond trials were a 5, which is the same rating that they had given on the 10-second trials. So we scored those trials as correct because they matched up with our final rating. The first 2 trials were then scored as incorrect. So on the next slide, I'm going to plot you the data for all of the trials across all of the participants. Here on the y-axis is the percentage correct, and on the x-axis represents those different time durations. The most important part, I think, of this graph is the horizontal dotted line, which represents what you would expect given chance performance. So that's the percentage correct we would expect if people were just randomly putting numbers in. So what I was looking for is when do these diagonal lines cross the chance performance line? And the 3 colors represent the 3 different genres of music. So what's shown in this graph is that at 750 milliseconds, for all genres, people were performing better than chance, which is pretty fast. It's quite a bit faster than our example of the car radio, which we had estimated to be several seconds. So people make snap judgments and they're pretty accurate. But something I noticed from looking at these data was that there seemed to be a difference between the classical and the electronic and jazz. Electronic and jazz people were even quicker at judging. They were able to do that at the 500 millisecond clip. So I thought, okay, could this be due to familiarity? Our participants are undergraduate students. Maybe they're really into EDM and jazz music, and they were better able to judge things they were more familiar with. So we did another version of this experiment, directly testing this question. The stimuli we used in this experiment were not classical, electronic, and jazz. They were pop music, and half of the pieces of music were familiar. These were hit singles, and half of the pieces were unfamiliar. So the familiar hit single might sound like this. Okay, so the unfamiliar pieces were songs by the same artists, just not their hits. So they were the B-sides, something like this. A night you won't forget. Okay, so unless you're a huge LMFAO fan, I totally am. You probably didn't recognize the second song, but you did recognize the first one. And we did a pre-test to make sure that our familiar pieces were actually rated as being more familiar. Then we did the same exact experiment as the last one. We had people listen to these familiar and unfamiliar pieces, rate them at all of the different time durations, and then see where do their ratings match the rating of the 10-second piece. So the next slide is the same exact figure, just with these new data. So what's shown up here is that the dotted line are the familiar pieces, the straight line are the unfamiliar pieces, and for both groups, people were above chance performance at 500 milliseconds. So this is similar to what we saw for the jazz and electronic pieces, but there was no difference between the familiar and unfamiliar pieces until we got out to the later time durations. So at 1 and 2 seconds, people were more accurate for familiar pieces of music. So this is refining the conclusion a bit that people make these snap judgments and they're quite accurate, but you do get information added over time. So this led to another question. How much information is added over time, and for how long? Do you reach a certain point where the information you're getting is no longer going to influence your decision? So we did a final version of this experiment looking at longer pieces of music. In this task, we played the same original electronic, jazz, and classical clips, but this time it was for 60 seconds each. And during the time the participants were listening to the music, we asked them to rate how much do you like this music right now, and they used a rollerball mouse to move a visual slider, like up here, from the left, meaning I don't like this part right now, to the right, meaning I do like this part right now. So I'm going to give you a brief example of what this might look like. Okay, that was only 10 seconds. The real clips were 60 seconds long. But let's say we plot that response with liking on the y-axis, that rating, and time on the x-axis. It might look something like this. So in addition to this continuous rating during the music, we also asked participants the same old question: how much do you like this piece of music overall? Give me a rating. And so let's say in this case, they rated it a 5. And then the outcome of this was to classify the pieces as being most liked or least liked based on that overall rating, and then to see, do these curves diverge at any point between the clips you ultimately liked and you ultimately disliked. So what I have plotted in this graph here is on the y-axis, that continuous rating curve, And they're separated for the most liked clips. Those are the clips people rated the highest overall. And the least liked clips were the clips people rated the lowest overall. And the lines, you can just see eyeballing it start to diverge pretty quickly within the first few seconds. I was interested in what's the earliest point I can detect a significant difference between these two lines, and that happened to be 3 seconds. So pretty darn quick. And 3 seconds is not the same as 500 milliseconds, but in this case, with having to make a motor movement, we wouldn't expect it to be that quick. So this again reinforces the conclusion that people make pretty accurate initial quick judgments of music, but also it's evident in this graph that there is information added over time, that 10 seconds looks different than 60 seconds. But what seems to be the case is that people make a decision and they stick with it. So you say, I like this song, and you just like it more and more the more you're listening to it. So as you get back in your car to drive home today at the end of this event, hopefully you can feel pretty confident that whatever radio station you end on is the right one for you. At least from my research, I've kind of come to the conclusion that the old adage of go with your gut ends up being true, and hopefully we can take away from this that we should trust our intuitions about what we like and what we dislike. Thanks.
All right. So that was the lecture about music and how it influences in our life. And she was like showing us a research that they did regarding the likes of people in that has to do regarding with music. And we're going to use now this information for our today's session and practice. All right, now let's start working. Well, first we're going to start analyzing what we have already listened. Oops, this just... Okay, something happened. All right. Now, oops. Okay, now, all right, now what we're going to do now, something happened today with the computer. Okay, now what we're going to do is, well, the link of this for this video is on our platform. If you can go there, it's just there, just with today's date. It's the video how music influences our life, is that one. All right, this is the original video. Now what we're going to do is you can do this also for your practices. It is very, very useful, and we will be doing this like in our on our sessions, which is to have the video in Google, in YouTube, and you go to this. We're going to use the option of the transcription that you can access that in the 3 dots, and then you click there and you have this option, show transcription. You open it, and you just have to say that show it, and you have there all of the subtitles that we just read, but written there on the transcription part. If you want to listen each at a specific moment of the video, just you go on the transcription of the on the place, let's say here on the minute 7:57, and the video just go there, and you just can listen it and read it at the same time.
Okay, that was only 10 seconds. The real clips were 60 seconds long. But let's say we plot that response with liking on the y-axis.
All right, so that what we're going to do now is that you use this option on your computers right now, or if you perhaps you're on your mobile. Some mobiles don't have this option. If it doesn't, just simply activate the subtitles option. That is by activating that, so you can listen and read. That is that you listen and read. You're going to have now 15 minutes, everybody, for you to re-listen this, but by using the transcript. So you find out information that you couldn't understand, or you, let's say, just jump it, or you were distracted, okay? And all of that information we're going to look for into this video will be for answering the following questions you have on the platform. On the questions discussion, you have that. There you have 5 questions, all right? The idea now is, this is a really common practice for TOEFL test, in which they will have you something for listening, and then you have to make like a critical analysis with like some open questions, but analyzing the content of the video that you have already listened, okay? So the idea now is to try to answer these questions, but by using the content of the video. And in some cases, you will see that some information regarding the questions will see like will seem to be like incomplete. So in that case, you have to try to infer into the video, because remember that in this level, whenever you are listening something in English, you will have to be able to also get those ideas that are not written, that are just like a part of that hidden messages that it involves. So that how you do that? You do that by using your own knowledge about the content, and also what the content that you have on the video. It's a mix of this content that you have in the video that we have already watched today, and also the information you have already know about the topic. For example, what do you know about the same, but in your own words, let's say. And with the mixing of those two types of informations, we start like trying to answer these questions. Okay, so I'm going to read the 5 questions. Remember that also you have those ones on your platform. The number 1 says, how does music affect our emotions and mood? Can you share personal experiences where a particular song or gender significantly impacted your emotional state? Okay. Oh, remember, you have to use your own knowledge and also the information that we got in this research that they were displaying us about how people feel specific emotions in specific moments of the song. That's very interesting, because, for example, Spotify does that. The algorithm just start analyzing in that way the way how you listen songs, and then that information they sell to other companies, music companies, radios especially, or they use it for perfectionate the app for you to listen. So it's very interesting. It's, for example, that like in number 1. Number 2, in what ways does music shape cultural identity and community bonds? How do different cultures utilize music to express their heritage and strengthen social connections? Remember that this study that they shown us reflect, in fact, how different are our likes and dislikes, and that those likes and dislikes are very influenced by culture. That's why, for example, in some cultures, we don't like some specific sounds in music, and in others, we like some others. And that's number 2. Number 3, explore the relationship between music and memory. How does music serve as a powerful trigger to recalling past experiences, events, or moments in our lives? So this research, in fact, explores that, right? So specific sounds in specific experiences will trigger some memories. And that is very linked with music. In education, teachers, we do that in most of the moments, especially when you are teaching, for example, languages. Is really a nice idea to connect music with what you are teaching, and usually is really successful because there is a kind of a connection between music and memories. So I have to discuss that part in number 3. Number 4, discuss the impact of music on mental health and well-being. How can music be used on a therapeutic tool to alleviate stress, anxiety, or depression? Are there specific genders or techniques that are particularly effective in this regard? All right, music and health. This research also show that because if people has different emotions just in a melody, so it means that these emotions, this connection with music regarding emotions can also be connected with perhaps anxiety, stress, depression, and things like that. And finally, consider the role of music in education and cognitive development. What we were talking about some moments ago. How does exposure to music to a young age influences a person's cognitive abilities and learning capacity? For example, it's proven that, for example, Mozart music really help to people to study. For example, something like that. Is there a connection between musical training and improved academic performance? Also, it's proven that people who likes jazz, blues, and rock are kind of more intelligent in some specific areas than people that love, for example, pop music or popular genders. There's also a connection that they know about that. Okay, so something like that. I don't know. Do you have any question before to continue? I'm going to be preparing the timer. Okay, the idea is now that you individually you try to answer those questions. You don't need to write them. It's not a good idea to write your answers. Try to make a mind map, try to make an outline, or simply write keywords that you're going to use for your answers. And after that, each of you're going to expose your opinions. We're going to speak like everybody all together, and everybody's going to be exposing your answers to the session. All right, so there we're going to practice speaking. So do you have any question before to continue? Let's start. We're going to have 15 minutes, which is like the common time that a TOEFL or these examinations gives you. And so also whenever you study by yourself, also try to use a timer and to have like 15 minutes or less. Try to time less, because if you do less in less time something and in a good way for examinations, that's absolutely like the best. So let's start working. You're going to have 15 minutes starting now for you to start working and preparing your answers regarding this. You can rewatch the video. The link is on our platform, and please use the transcript or at least the subtitles. All right, let's start working. 15 minutes is start. Any question you have, I am here just connected. Just you can use your microphones to question or to write your questions directly on the chat. I'm gonna be aware. All right, start working.